and welcome to another episode of the On Trade Network Sessions. Thank you for joining us again. Tonight, my guest has been in and around the industry, connected by one way or another for quite a number of years. He's got far more experience than I have, so really glad to have him on board today to just chat to you and give you his thoughts. Gary Boyes from IMD UK, welcome.
Thanks, Ross. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
No, I really appreciate you coming on. It's really good to have views from all over the industry, and you know, we've had a lot of drink suppliers and brand owners on who, for various reasons, and obviously they want to sell, but it's great to have some insight into the various areas of the industry. You've kind of been involved in quite a bit of it, from behind the bar to where you are now. Would you mind just giving a bit of a introduction and talking about yourself?
Yeah, no problem. I think it goes back to probably when I could legally drink in a bar from the age of 18. Surely no one drinks before then. But as soon as I was 18, I got myself a job in a pub, working a couple of nights a week. And it's one of those Marmite industries, isn't it, that you love or you hate. And since then, I've always been involved in it. I did working in the pub for, in the end, sort of six evenings a week. Loved it, got to know at the time the local Whitbread rep. And for many of you probably listening on here, you'll think Whitbread are a hotel chain, but they really were, as one of the major brewers. This would have been sort of mid to late 80s. So I was at Whitbread. I went to work with Whitbread Beer Company, free trade, which was tremendous fun. And the beauty of this industry, I'm still in contact with a lot of the guys and girls that I used to work with back then. I then went from Whitbread, probably mid-90s, to Scotco, Scottish Courage. Of course, Scotco is now Heineken UK, whereas Whitbread effectively evolved into Budweiser Brewing Group. Late 90s, I went to Britvic. I went soft. I went to Britvic Soft Drinks, more so in a training role rather than sales. And from probably, well, 20 years ago, in fact, this year, I've been out on my own, training predominantly, if I can, in the hospitality industry, because I find it such a fascinating area. You still, to this day, meet some wonderful people out there. And people will still tell you, yeah, the characters aren't out there. Let me tell you, they still are. There's some great characters from the past, but there's some fantastic characters about even now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that brings us up to date. IMD is a training company, effectively three branches to that, Ross. One is sales and management, so and everything that is wrapped up in that: customer service, negotiation, etc. I've then got health and safety and fire, and if we have time, I'll tell you why I got into that at the time. And the third arm is anything to do with the mind. For many years, I've been totally fascinated with how powerful the mind is. People used to call me lucky. I now realise you actually make your own luck. So I also run courses in terms of mindset, NLP, which many of your listeners, I'm sure, are aware of, neuro-linguistic programming. I dabble with a bit of hypnosis, but it's just incredible what goes on. And you'll see my golfer behind me, because I am an incredibly keen golfer. So much so that I evolved another company called the Mind Zone, which is all about golf psychology. So in a nutshell, I don't know if that was a nutshell, it was a bloody big nut. That's me.
No, that's great. And what really interests me is the kind of the footprints you've made in lots of different parts of our industry. And you're right, all those characters are totally still out there. It's a real kind of cross-pollinated industry where people move from area to area, but those connections are all still there. And I've still got good mates who,
Yeah.
whatever reason, may have left the industry, who always say, "I wish I was still part of it." So I think what's I really want to get under the skin of a couple of things that are happening in the industry at the moment. Perhaps you might be able to help people, particularly pub operators and pub managers who are at the moment dealing with a bit of a crisis in terms of staffing issues, and not being able to get people into the business. And I'm just, for me, I think the kind of the root of the problem in a lot of places is people think of the hospitality industry as a short-term stopgap. There are people who come in, students, they just want to make a few quid while they're learning.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a long time career, and I guess the training and development side of that is what places need to work on. I guess you've done a bit of that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. And sadly, this industry is perceived as a part-time job. And let's be honest, most of us started work probably in the pub industry a couple of nights a week, or maybe the student union bar or something like that. And it was to save up to buy a car or put petrol in the car or whatever. And I do find it sad that public perception is that it is just a part-time job. I know people that work tremendously hard in the industry, and when they say to someone, "Oh, I work in a pub," they say, oh, "Okay, what are you going to do long term then?"
Mm.
And I love it when they turn around and say, "Well, I'm going to work in the pub, and I'm going to become a supervisor, team leader, assistant manager, manager, and you know what? I might even go out and buy my own pub one day." Um, and it's a perception that all we can do is keep going on about it to change people's perception. Because fortunately, Ross, I've made some tremendous friends that are massively successful people now that started. I knew them as pot washers, bar people, bar person, barman, bar women, whatever, and they've just fell in love with the industry and evolved. And as most people listening to this will realise, running a pub ain't just about pulling pints. You know, you've got your business strategy behind it, your growth, you've got wages. You know, there's so many facets to it. And I think it really is, for many pub operators now, and we understand why we are short of staff. We had Brexit, we've had COVID for the last 15, 16 months, and people have dropped out into different areas and thought, "Do you know what, I don't want to work every Friday and Saturday night." But it will, I'm convinced it will come back, but I am biased. But training people, you can't just expect people to rock up and do their induction and never train them again. You know, find out, speak to them. What do they want to do? Let's be honest, you've also got the students and the part-time people that we desperately need in the industry for summertime, for Christmas time, for Easter, that we can't afford to employ 12 months a year, but we desperately need those people. So I have no issue if someone says, "Yeah, I just want a part-time job, 5 or 6 years, earn a bit of money while I'm at uni or whatever." But I've got to tell you, people, that there's some tremendous opportunities out there for people to make this a career.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's kind of there's two things really that my viewpoint on people who want a part-time job whilst they sort of enhance their careers in uni or
Mm.
college or wherever. Actually, working in a pub gives you significant life skills that will definitely help you, in whatever career you go into. Just being able to talk and communicate to people, and interact, and that kind of work ethic.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of what people need to get into the world of work, kind of post education. And then on the other side, I think what some pub companies do really, really well, with people who are there long term, is kind of that progression plan and that's something that the big multiple operators can do because of scale.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but then, that's probably something that independents and small MROs and these kind of guys should probably, perhaps there needs to be some kind of alliance where people can, obviously if you're an independent pub, you can only take your staff so far,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
let's give them a recognized qualification so that when they're at their level, they're looking to run their own pub, and you kind of bring people through for the industry.
Absolutely. And it's a very valid point that you've talked about the major So the big pub chains out there, the big brewers, etc. But even your one, two, three. I've got a lot of contacts that have got maybe half a dozen pubs, might have two or three pubs. And the perception, that's a lovely word, we use it again. That perception that, well, I can't afford to do training, just doesn't hold with me. Yes, you can go off and some of the big contracts with the big brewers are worth absolutely tens of thousands training per year, but then they've got the budget to do it. But a small one or two pub chain, you know, I didn't come on here to advertise my services, but seriously, Ross, nothing is out the question. But people, I think, don't ask because they think, oh, I can't afford training. And there's that old thing in training world that if I train someone and they become really good, they're going to leave and go somewhere else. But you know what? That's life. That's life. What if you don't train them and you give the customers, your guests, really poor service, and you don't teach them how to pour a pint of Guinness or ale or lager, whatever, and they serve really bad pints?
Yeah.
That's more detrimental to your business than investing a little and doing it the right way.
Yeah, and I think bringing people through to a level and helping them progress and move on,
Mm.
actually, that gives you a reputation as an employer. If you're, from a customer service perspective, you're always making sure that your customers are getting the very best because you're training your staff to a decent level. So yeah, I think more of that kind of training and development, helps everybody. It helps the guest experience. It
Yeah.
helps that which ultimately helps the pub owner operator, and it helps those teams whether they stay or not to
Yeah.
move up and move through the industry. And you talked about mindset, and I'm a huge advocate of learning and personal
Mm.
development in terms of mindset. So how do we change the mindset of people on what coming into the industry is about then? Because we've talked about how people have a perception that it's a short term, it's not a career. How do we help change that
Yeah.
mindset?
Well, beliefs and a mindset, you need evidence. You need evidence to do that. Why do people believe in certain things? Well, go back to when your first beliefs. They reckon you're born with two fears: the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Now, everything else is a learned experience. So these people that tell me I'm frightened of wasps or spiders, you've learnt that. It's not instinct. You've learnt that probably from a parent. And at a very early age, your beliefs, your mindset comes from your parents. You then go to school, and all of a sudden, your teacher is the be all and end all. And your parents don't actually know anything. It's all about the teacher. And as we go through life, we tend to learn new things which can change our beliefs. Um, I'm sure you're probably with me on this one, Ross, that the world is actually round.
Yeah.
And yet there's people out there that still believe to this day that it is flat. And if you go back 500 or 600 years, probably more than that now, we had evidence to suggest it was flat. You looked out and you could see everything was flat, and people would go off in a little canoe or whatever, a log, and paddle away, and they got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until they disappeared. And the assumption, because we didn't know any better, was they're falling off the edge of the world. So the fear factor says, I'm not going to do that in case I do the same. But as we've got more evidence, we've got technology, satellites, etc., and we now know that the world is round, most of us, that's a change in belief. How do we do it in the pub trade? We give people evidence that you can make a career from this. And it's well documented. Again, look at any GM, any pub manager, and I'm fortunate that I work with some absolutely wonderful customers that I've traded with for a long time that have got some superb pubs out there. And because of their systems, they've got such a progression of staff. Yes, they're short staffed at the moment, but isn't everyone in this trade due to things outside of training. But all we can do is start to keep training and progress and give people evidence, which will then change their belief.
That's great. Thank you. And I love the example with the whole flat world, flat Earth society. I think they're called, aren't they?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you believe it? Back then.
Yeah,
Um,
no, yeah, yeah. It makes perfect sense when you look at it from their perspective at the time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's only learning and taking risks and new experiences that has brought us further on to understand all of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
So if you were obviously it's nice to be able to sell your services. You know, you don't do this for nothing. You've got to put food on the table and whatnot. So,
yeah,
you know, if you're obviously talking to our 4,000 odd members on here now,
yeah,
you know, out of those, some are going to be looking for some services in terms of training and the health and safety and fire stuff that you were talking about. Do you want to
yeah.
just give a brief overview of what you can offer?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the best thing is, I would suggest find out in your own mind what it is you want. People have phoned me up in the past or contacted me by email and said, "Can you do a sales course?" I said, "Yeah, I can. No problem. What do you want then?" "Well, a sales course." But what I want to know is, where do you want to take your people? What's your ideal um, GM, your assistant, your bar person? What does that look like? Okay, let's write it down. Well, they've got to be communicative. They've got to ask good questions. They've got a good product knowledge, things like that. Okay, that's our ideal bar person, for example. And my next question is, where are they now? Because if you want to get there, Ross, but you're already there, all I'm going to do is train that bit in the middle. And so many, I don't do any off the shelf packages. You can't buy a course that starts down here, because if it was a 3 or 4 day course, for example, the first 2 days they probably already know. So it's about just bridging that gap. Find out what it is you want to do, where you are at the moment, and I'll help you with that bit. So that's it in terms of the sales, communication, guest service, customer service, health and safety. Sadly, the last 15 months, with pubs shut down, etc., has been, let's say, unfortunate. It's a little bit stronger than that, but we'll leave it at unfortunate. Unfortunately, though, health and safety and fire legislation hasn't gone away. And my big fear is there's a lot of pubs out there, pubs, clubs, anyone sort of on trade that haven't updated their fire risk assessment, that haven't trained their staff, that maybe have done induction training when their staff joined, but haven't done any refresher training. Um, Things like manual handling. You know, most of us are into first aid, but things like manual handling, you can imagine in a cellar, can't you? Especially some of our cellars that have got really low ceilings. You're shifting kegs around all day. Um, Train your people in manual handling. It's not expensive to do, but what it does for you, and I say to people, I'm an investment in your business, because if I can stop one accident, one manual handling claim, insurance job, etc., then I'm money well spent. And I do feel that over the last 15 months, because of the sort of turbulence in the industry, that's something that has been pushed to a side. Maybe a health and safety booklet has just been passed around, and they've been told, read this and sign it to make sure you understand it. Unfortunately, in a court of law, something goes wrong, you know as well as I do, Ross, it don't stack up.
Yeah.
They want to know that you've done suitable and sufficient training from someone who is qualified and competent to do that. And the other thing that I love getting involved in the trade, and what I can help people with, is the mindset. Um, you know, am I allowed to swear on this, by the way?
You can do what you like. Yeah.
Right, okay. It's been a shit 15 months for so many people.
Yeah.
Absolutely shit. Um, but you know what? I'm convinced that we will get through this. I've sort of stopped listening to Boris and what have you, because um, people don't always agree with what's coming out there. Some people say he's done a tremendous job. Some people said it's awful. But I don't tend to listen to it until he actually tells us, right, you can go back to normal. You can do this. You can do that. The 21st, in fact, today was so-called Freedom Day. It's now another 4 weeks away. But you know what? We're going to get on with it, and you will have seen on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Twitter. If you follow some of the guys and girls out there, there's some tremendous things that are going on, and we've changed our whole concept in the industry for takeaways. You know, when I first, this is how old I am, Ross, and a bit of a dinosaur. When I first started working in the pub, if you could get a cheese sandwich, you were really lucky. You know, then we progressed to scampi and chips, and now we offer an amazing array of food. Now we offer takeaways as well, and you can have your cocktails taken away, and you can have your little poly pins, and you know it's tremendous what's happened in the trade. I wish it hadn't have happened, but you know what, it has. So we need to get on with it. But in terms of mindset, you know, we will get through this. It's evolution. Sadly, there will be some casualties, but there'll also, I'm convinced, be many opportunities, some massive opportunities. And all I would urge people to do is get yourself out there, be in the right place, ready to take those risks and opportunities.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think, it's mindset change, and, having a positive mindset has been certainly demonstrable in the last 12
Mm.
months of people, like you say, who've changed their whole business model.
Yeah,
They've worked on ways to keep themselves working. Businesses that are open now under pretty tough trading restrictions,
yeah.
but are doing things exceptionally well. And it's an absolute sort of, it just demonstrates the positivity of our industry that,
Mm.
that nobody's sat there moaning. Nobody's complaining that it's not fair, because actually a lot of it hasn't been fair to the industry. They've all
Yeah.
just sort of got on with it. So yeah, that's definitely a positive mindset that I've enjoyed seeing.
Yeah, yeah, that's superb. And if I can add one thing, Russ, because I know within the on-trade network there's lots of people that I recognise and have spoken to over the years. But one thing I'd love to sort of see more of from anyone working in the sales side is, please stop just selling your brand. Find out from your potential customers what it is that they need. Because I see this so many times, people, because we're excited in the sales world, we're excited, we want to go out, we want to sell this, and my lager's better than your lager, and my ale's better than this, and I'm craft, and I'm not, and whatever. Go out, talk to customers, and I would urge, think about what questions people ask, because it's a subject I'm sort of infatuated about, asking the right questions. You know, what can I do to make your business better? Find out what people's pain points are, what is it they're missing, and sell them something that achieves their objective or their goal rather than a product or a service. Because if you've then, and you've been in the trade a while, Ross, once you've done that and you've got a relationship with them, you have got a customer for life there, because
100%.
you've built trust, engagement, the whole lot. So plan your questions and get out there and sell a solution to their problem. And we all know this because we do sales training courses, but I still see, and I love doing field accompaniments with people, and I still see the same old things that we were doing 30 and 40 years ago, telling someone why they should buy their brand. You know, find out what it is that is hurting their business, and offer them a solution.
Yeah, and I think, the more people take a consultancy approach to selling, you're an expert in your field as a brand owner, as a salesperson. Use your knowledge and experience to help people find solutions for their business, rather than trying to ram a product down their throat that perhaps might not even be the right product for them.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and what was great that you said there about asking the right questions, something that I've seen a lot of in the past, where people do ask the right questions, but they don't take time to listen to the answers. And I think that's as important, isn't it? Let's ask the right questions, and let's listen to what they want
yeah.
before we try and sell anything.
Absolutely. I mean, it reminds me of my old biology teacher, blimey, back in the 70s, something like that. And I can remember Mrs. Smith, her name was. And I remember her saying, probably because I talk too much, she said, Gary, remember, two of these, one of these. So listen twice as much as you talk. And you know, it still holds true now, doesn't it? It still holds true.
Absolutely. So what's the future for you post pandemic in this part of the industry?
Okay, post pandemic, the last 15 months, I've got to say, Ross has been pretty tough. I've been getting on with many things sort of behind the scenes that doesn't particularly pay the bills. But I'm really looking forward. I've started doing some work with some of my regular customers in the trade, which is tremendous. Pub openings and getting back to where we were. So I'm looking probably the next, it ain't going to happen overnight, but maybe the next 12 to 18 months. I totally realise we've got to build up. People have been furloughed, they've got business grants, but it ain't profit. So people have got to build up some profit out there. And once they've done that, get some training budget in. But again, I'm probably biased, but don't delay with your training. You know, get in from the off. I won't mention which big national brewer it was, um, but they said we've started training. We've got our sales guys and girls out there from now because we want to be ready. Now they're very fortunate; they've got the resources to be able to do that. Some of our smaller breweries and brand owners haven't got that, but just don't delay. You know, as soon as we can go, well, we are getting back to normality now. Rule of six, etc. Most of our pubs are open. Let's start planning, and I'm just waiting to start picking up the phone and emails once more. It's starting to come through, which is tremendous. Um, but I think the next 12 to 18 months is going to be crucial to our industry. And anyone that's out there, any of the big brewers that are listening to this, thank you for all your support. Big brewers tend to get a bit of a rough ride, um, but I know for a fact that many of them have been really helpful and have had the backup of good resources that has seen many of our publicans and the on-trade actually seen them through this. So from me to you, thank you for that. And all you smaller brewers, brand owners, spirits, wines, etc., keep doing what you're doing, but do it better. But do it better because the world's changing.
Yeah, you're right. And no, I echo your sentiments about big brewers as well. I've worked across different categories across the industry
Mm.
for many years, and they do get a bad rep at times, as do big pub operators. But actually,
Yes.
they do a lot for the industry. There's a lot of support, innovation, things that then get rolled out across other businesses. That if it wasn't for that, we'd probably be in a bit more of a challenging position. So yeah, I think it's all about inclusivity, and no one's too big or too small to get involved. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, thank you
Yeah.
very much, and I look forward to seeing what you're doing over the next couple of months. And you're always welcome to come and do some training on the On Trade Network. And
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I'd love to. Let's talk sort of in the future, Ross, as things get back to more normality. You know, I'll always say to everyone, give me an opportunity to talk to you. And if I can, it might turn out that I can't help you. You know, but give me the opportunity to actually say, actually, no, I can't help you. But the chances are that if I can't help you, I'll know someone that can. But you know, network communication. I'm really looking forward to getting out when the trade shows are back.
yeah,
I always used to enjoy the trade shows, not just for the samples and what have you, but to actually go around and talk to people and understand what's happening.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'll soon be out there once more, um, and yeah, great opportunity.
Well, thanks very much for your time, and speak again soon.
You're welcome. Thanks, Ross.